Hey friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. If you're new here, hello and welcome. I am Taylor. I'm a stay-at-home wife and mom of two, and I share these What's for Dinner videos every week to hopefully give you guys some new meal ideas and to motivate you to cook more for your family. So if you like these kinds of videos, I hope that you will stick around and hit that subscribe button down below. This week we had some delicious meals, but most of them were also pretty easy to throw together. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the video. Starting off with Friday. Friday was New Year's Eve and I made us some ribs. So I'm starting off by taking a knife and getting under like the membrane on the back side of the ribs and then using a paper towel to pull that off. Every recipe that I've seen has you do this, but some ribs that you find in the store already have it removed. Which is really nice because it's kind of a pain to do. But I heard like it makes them more tender and it helps them pull apart easier when you remove that. So I always try to do it. And then I just rubbed the ribs down with some seasoning. I used this applewood rub that I picked up at Dollar Tree. It was the last of the container and it's pretty good. I've made ribs with it a couple times. And then I just take them and I've got them on a foil lined baking sheet and then I cover them completely with foil and stick them in a oven that is preheated to 275. And these are baby back ribs, so I cooked them for 2.5 hours. After the 2.5 hours, I took them out of the oven, removed all of the foil off of them, and then there was a little bit of liquid on the pan, so I drained that off, and then I coated these with barbecue sauce and put them under the broiler for about 5 minutes. And this is what they looked like when they came out, and I just let them rest for 5 to 10 minutes before cutting into them. We had these with some salad and some Instant Pot mac and cheese. I've shown the recipe for the Instant Pot mac and cheese many times. I will have it listed out down below, as well as a link to where I made it. These ribs are always delicious. They do take quite a long time to cook, but it's definitely worth it. Saturday was New Year's Day, and it has become our tradition to make spaghetti on New Year's Day. So I decided to make spaghetti and meatballs. So I'm making my Parmesan meatball recipe. I like to mix everything together in my KitchenAid. I will have all the ingredients listed out for this down below, but the one thing I did do different this time was I used 1 pound of ground pork and 1 pound of ground beef. Usually I just do a ground beef, but some of y'all suggested I use some of that ground pork for meatballs, and I didn't even think of that, but I am glad that y'all suggested it because it turned out really good. So in the bowl of my KitchenAid, I have added 2 pounds of meat, a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, a 1/3 cup of panko breadcrumbs, 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, a teaspoon of parsley, a teaspoon of minced garlic, a teaspoon of onion powder, 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire, 2 eggs, and some salt and pepper. But as I said, all of that will be listed out down below for y'all. Once I have all that added in there, then I just turn on the mixer with the paddle attachment and let it run for like 30 seconds to a minute. It doesn't need very long at all. Then I just roll these all out into balls. You could use a cookie scoop for this, but I could not find mine on this day. I don't know where it was. I ended up finding it later, but I can't remember where it was. But yeah, you just roll them all out. And I like to cook them in the air fryer, so I am putting them on my air fryer pan. But you could bake them, you could fry them, whatever you want to do. But in the air fryer, they go in there on 350 for about 15 minutes. This has been our favorite meatball recipe for a while, but it was even better this time with the mixture of the pork and ground beef. I will definitely keep that in mind for the future. Thank you to those of you that recommended it. We just had them on top of some spaghetti noodles with some marinara and some garlic bread on the side. Sunday night, I tried a new recipe for some Italian beef in the crock pot, and we used this for sandwiches. So I've just got a 3-pound chuck roast in the bottom of my crock pot, and I topped that with some Italian dressing seasoning packet, and then some sliced banana peppers. I think it was supposed to be sliced pepperoncini peppers, but I couldn't find sliced ones and didn't want to do the whole ones. I wanted the sliced ones, so I just did the banana peppers. And then you do about 16 ounces of beef broth. That's it. And then you just let it cook on low for like 8 hours. After the 8 hours, I removed the lid and then I shredded this up, and there were some bigger pieces of fat, and I just removed those, got them out of there. The original recipe wanted you to like cut up the chuck roast and like remove any big pieces of fat. I didn't want to do that, and the fat like adds flavor while it's cooking, so I just left it on and then I just remove it. I do the same thing with Mississippi pot roast. If there's big chunks of fat, I just take them out so nobody has to deal with that. So I just shred this up and then I let it sit and like soak up the juices for about 30 minutes to an hour. I was going to do french fries on the side with this, but I completely forgot to buy them somehow. I am using the homemade Subway bread that I have shared before for these sandwiches. I will leave the link to my bread video down below. And we topped the meat with some provolone cheese, and then I did some extra banana peppers, and then we did some fresh veggies and salad on the side. Monday night we had nachos, so I just cooked up some ground beef with some taco seasoning. I heated up some refried beans in the microwave, and I heated up some nacho cheese. This was nacho cheese from Kroger, and it's not as good as the Rico's, but it was okay. And then I just got all of our toppings together. We had lettuce, pico, sour cream, salsa, jalapenos, and some shredded cheese as well. And this is what mine looks like. It had pretty much some of everything. And then Elijah just likes his with meat, beans, cheese, and lettuce. And Lily likes hers with meat, beans, cheese, and salsa. Tuesday night I made a copycat Olive Garden chicken gnocchi soup, and for that I needed some shredded cooked chicken, so I decided to make it in my Instant Pot. So I added about a cup of water in my Instant Pot with my trivet over it, and then I added in 2 chicken breasts and some seasoning. I did some salt and pepper, and then this Olive Garden seasoning that my sister got me for Christmas. She said she found it at Dollar Tree, and so I decided to use that on this. And then this cooked on manual high pressure for 10 minutes with a 5-minute natural release. After the 5-minute natural release, I released any extra steam that was in there, and then I took my chicken out and shredded it up. To get started on my soup in a big pot, I melted 4 tablespoons of butter with a tablespoon of olive oil. And then once that was melted, I added in some chopped onion, some minced garlic, and some shredded carrots. And I let that cook for about 5 minutes until my onions became translucent. Then I mixed in a 1/4 cup of flour and let that cook for about a minute. Next, I added in my broth. For this, I used 6 cups of water and 6 teaspoons of Knorr chicken bouillon, and I used my whisk to whisk that all together and make sure there were no clumps. But you could definitely just use chicken broth if that's what you prefer. And then I just let that simmer until it started to thicken up a bit. Once it had thickened up a little bit, I added in 2 cups of warmed milk. I warmed this milk in the microwave for about 1:30 just so I wasn't adding cold milk to my hot broth. And then I also added in some parsley and salt and pepper, and then I brought this to a boil. Once it came to a boil, I added in 2 cups of that shredded cooked chicken, as well as a 16-ounce package of gnocchi, and I let that continue to cook for about 5 minutes until the gnocchi was done. You can tell the gnocchi's done when it has risen to the top. So at that point, I turned the heat down to low, and then I added in about a cup of spinach and just let that spinach wilt for like 3 minutes. This soup was delicious. It was the first time I'd ever made chicken gnocchi soup at home. I love gnocchi, but I just never made this. And it's one of my favorite soups to get at Olive Garden, so I don't know why it took me so long to try it at home. To go with it, I made some copycat Olive Garden breadsticks that look not so great. I was struggling with the recipe this time. I had made them in the past, and they turned out beautiful, and they looked just like Olive Garden. This time, I don't know what was going on, but I was really struggling with the dough. But, you know, they might not be pretty, but they sure did taste really good, especially with the soup. Wednesday night, I made a family favorite, and that is Cowboy Beans. This recipe originally came from my friend Jess over at Jess and the Boys, so I always like to link her original recipe down below, but I will also list out all the ingredients down there and probably link one of the videos where I made it too. And this time we had some crescent rolls that I made in the air fryer. I do them on 300 for a total of 9 minutes, flipping halfway through, and then we also had some salad on the side. Thursday night, I made another family favorite, and that is shrimp and grits. So I started by bringing some water to a boil. I will have the recipe for this listed out down below for y'all. And then once that water came to a boil, I added in my grits and my salt. So this is 4 cups of water, 1 cup of grits, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then I turned the heat down to like a medium and let this cook for 5 to 7 minutes until like all of that water was absorbed and my grits were tender. While my grits were cooking in a large skillet over medium heat, I started cooking up some bacon. This is 1/2 pound of bacon that I just cut up with my kitchen shears, and I'm just going to cook it until it's crispy. Once my grits were done, I turned off the heat, and then I added in 3 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream, and then a bunch of cheese. You're supposed to use 1.5 cups of shredded cheddar, but I only had a little bit of cheddar, and then I had a little bit of like a Mexican blend, and then I tossed in some sliced cheddar just because I didn't feel like shredding up a bunch of cheese, and it worked out great. And then I just covered this and let it sit to the side while I worked on everything else. When my bacon was done, I removed it from the pan and left all of the bacon grease behind in the pan to cook my shrimp in. And then I just put in 1 pound of shrimp, and I seasoned that up with some Tony's Creole seasoning. And then the shrimp cooked for about 5 minutes until it was completely cooked through. When my shrimp was done, I removed it from the pan, and then I left like all of the liquid in there, the leftover grease from the bacon and whatnot, and then I added a little bit more olive oil and some chopped red pepper, and I just let that cook for a couple of minutes until the red pepper started to soften. Then I added in some chopped minced garlic and some chopped green onions. And I just let that cook for about a minute. Then I added in a 1/4 cup of chicken broth. I added my bacon back in and my shrimp back in, and I just let this sit and simmer for 2 to 3 minutes just until everything was nice and hot. We just put the shrimp mixture over top of our cheese grits, and I like to put a little bit of fresh green onion on top of mine as well. This is so delicious, and it quickly became a family favorite. We had never tried shrimp and grits before last year, and now we make it all the time. That is going to be it for this week's What's for Dinner. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you leave me a thumbs up. And if you are new here, I hope that you will subscribe down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!